Hey, good evening, family. Welcome again to another broadcast. I told you it's going to be a busy day today. So glad that you guys can join us today on this beautiful December the 20th, Wednesday of 2023, as we are marching quickly to the end of 2023 and heading into the year 2024. So it's moving, y'all. Time waits for no man, as we all know. Well, anyway, I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. And I know for many of you, this is the time of the year if you have vacation days. And a lot of times people, I know I did when I was out in the corporate field, I would save my days for this week between, the week between Christmas and New Year's. Yeah, I know we got some people that get triggered as soon as you say the word Christmas. I'm not saying celebrating Christmas. I'm just simply saying it's a time where most people have time off, and I'm just simply saying you just use that time to get the most of it. That's all I'm saying. It's a shame you got to explain all this to people. They just, like I said, people just hear what they want to hear. but anyway, I know for me, I always ended up with not enough days. Like one of those days during that week between Christmas and New Year's, I ended up having to come in. And man, when I tell you it was boring, I mean, nothing to do. I was just sitting up there, just staring out the window, and it was just nothing to do at all. I had to pretend that I was doing something. And of course, that was like the one day my boss decided to come in and, hey, I'm just coming in to check on everybody and just see how everyone. No, you're not. You coming in to see if I'm working, and I am. Get out anyway. And as soon as they leave or whatever. And then it was funny because this job that I'm thinking of right now, this is like one of my first corporate jobs I had. And I was doing some engineering work. And when I was, it was funny because I was the youngest in that entire team. When I was hired, I want to say 20. Yeah, I was pretty young. I was pretty young, about 20 years old. I was working for one of the Bell companies. And anyway, it was mostly a desk job. And my boss, anyway, he would come, and everybody else on the team, bro, they were like in their late 50s, early 60s. I mean, these folks are old, okay? They were old. So you want to talk about age gap. It was a huge age gap between a 20-year-old and the rest of the team that was like I said, again, in their late 50s and early 60s. And these were old Bell Labs people. Now I'm going way back. Bell Labs, I don't know if we had any. No, that was because this was like they were in the Bell system for years. So anyway, but I was like a new jack coming in or whatever. And so it was so funny to watch because young people, you think that y'all the only ones do this, but what I'm about to tell you, but no. So anyway, when the boss will come in, he, like on days like that, people would just be milling around, acting like they're working. As soon as he would leave, they would say, oh yeah, he left. And next thing you know, you see desk lights going out and they jetting. I mean, the folks were booking, man. They were getting out of there. I was like, man, ain't that something? I said, now, if I did it, it would be a whole nother situation. But yeah, it was something to watch that. I'm just sitting here thinking about that now. But anyway, just make the most of it. If you find yourself having to work or whatever, especially if you have to work on, Christmas or New Year's. I've done that many times. And hopefully you're getting, some extra pay in your check or whatever. And just, like I said, again, you make the most of it. That's what you do, and just keep it right on going. But anyway, hope you guys had a wonderful day, and a big shout out, of course, to everybody that's in the chat. And yeah, so we still, just real quick, we still have our sale, which is coming to a close. We're getting ready to shut it down on sombertree.com. So make sure you check out the website. I'll have a video that I'll be uploading later on tonight, telling you about some new products that we just added. Hopefully you're on the email list so that you can get the heads up on those brand new products. But we'll also have a video coming up as well to let y'all know on all of that. So anyway, so earlier today we had a discussion talking about these. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. I don't even know what to call it. It's, this whole trend that's really turning scary now, at least in my view, of our people who are using, who are taking history and they're actually turning it as if it's their own, buffet, and where they're picking all kinds of things and making up stories. So in the broadcast that we did earlier, it was called Black Affirmation Insanity. If you didn't get a chance to watch that when you get some free time. Okay. But do watch that when you do get a chance. And basically what we talked about is this trend of, I pointed out 3 examples that I saw and I've been seeing for some time out on these social media streets, where our people, Black folks, are actually using words and things that words that were said, by people such as Adolf Hitler. Then they used some claim that Christopher Columbus was actually a black man. So now I guess we got to claim Christopher Columbus, right? And then we talked about Charles Manson. Yes, Charles Manson. I use an example where some bodies are actually pointing to something that Charles Manson said years ago, and saying, see, Charles Manson understood who we really are as the people. I said, do you really want to use Charles Manson? Do you really want to go there? And so anyway, just watch the video, because like I said again, because what I'm realizing is that there is a percentage of our people who simply don't even know. They don't even know. They just are thumbing through Pinterest, finding images, that they want to say, let me darken the face here. Let me add this. Let me do this. Let me create this backstory. Seriously, it's crazy. It's crazy what's out here. And these people will stand on 2 feet and try to argue you down. Like I shared in a video earlier how I had one individual trying to debate me on the term Afro. Like we were talking about Afro as in hairstyle. And he was trying to make the claim that the Afro was just a name that indigenous Black folks just came up with. It had nothing to do with Africa. The Afro had nothing to do with Africa. You serious? He said, yeah. He did like a break. He said Af and Ro. He tried to. I was like, so you're literally right now trying to delineate the word Africa from Afro. You really trying to do that? You really trying to do that? I said, brother, let me tell you something. I lived during those times. Ain't nobody was talking about no Indian. When we referred to the Afro hairstyle. And I even went further and talked about how some, not everybody was walking around with dashikis, but it was part of the style in those days. So we will wear, you had people who wear the Afro style and also dashikis, which are African. It's an African garb, and the women, I remember Black women, my aunties and all them, seeing them wearing them big, my mom wearing them big, thick earrings, the thick wooden jewelry and stuff like that. Y'all think that's just something that just came up. We've been doing that for a long time, and of course even longer on the continent. But this was our way as a people trying to reconnect with the continent of Africa. Even though many of us we can't really pinpoint anything, but we do know based on historical facts, records, not claims, but records that yes, many of us did in fact come from over there. And so here you had this dusty small Negro trying to say that the word Afro or the Afro style had nothing to do with Africa. I was like, okay, wow, this is where we are. So, it makes you tired. It really does. And then and then there's many times I've just literally look at this microphone. I'm like, I'm done. I just, what's the point? But I also realize that, there are many of our people who just don't know. It's really that bad. Now, you may not think it's that bad, but trust me, you spend enough time out here. Some of our people, they don't even know. Do you know that I've seen where people even, did I, oh, wait a minute, am I still here? Hold on. I've listened to, yeah, I'm still here. I've seen how some people, or even asked about like things like Martin Luther King. And, I'm talking about black folks now, black, younger black folks. And they're like, Martin, who? They really don't know a whole lot about him. I'm not saying all black young people are like that, but there is a percentage, and it's growing, of history that you think they know, that you would know. They don't know. They don't know it. And see, it's easy for us to immediately pivot and say, well, see, that's why, it's the public schools ain't teaching them. The public schools ain't teaching them. And then you jump into Florida. See, that's when you got these racist, governors and all that coming up with laws that prevent our children from being taught history. No, Negro, that's your responsibility to do that. That ain't the governor of Florida's responsibility. It ain't the president's responsibility. That's your Negro behind's responsibility to teach your children. And I'm going to tell you right now, based on what we're seeing out here now, there's a huge failure. The failure of the public school system did not start with the public school system. The failure of the public school system started in the homes. We don't want to acknowledge that. We don't want to admit that, but it's very true. Because if you are 100% as a parent depending and relying on a system that enslaved you, a system that has lied to you, and you are foolish enough to send your children to that school system and think that they're going to sit your child down and tell them the truth. If you are in 2023 still thinking like that, then you deserve everything that's coming to you. You really do at this point. You really do. You really do. Because I mean, how many more examples do you need to be given? I mean, it's bad enough our people are out here thinking that begging and screaming and hollering that the government's going to say, you know what, doggone it, we're going to give you your reparations. And did you hear the other day in New York, state of New York, the governor, she said, you know what, I am signing this bill where I am acknowledging that we are going to we're going to start a committee, and we're going to study the impact of slavery in this country, and we're going to figure out this whole reparations thing. Let me ask you something. And you got black folks that were dancing in the streets over this. Let me ask you something. Because come here. Let me ask you something for a second. Did they go through that when they were giving money to the people in Ukraine? Did they have to set up a whole study, a committee about the impacts of what the people of Ukraine went through? Did they do that? Or how about those people in Afghanistan? See, I ain't forget about Afghanistan. How about all those folks that they brought over from Afghanistan? Did they have to do a study and break down on all the people coming over from Afghanistan and figure out, hey, what will happen if we give them this money and how much? I don't remember that. How about Israel? Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Sending all the constant millions and millions and billions and billions of dollars we've been sending over there. I've heard we even cover their health care. They in the Jewish community, they have something set up where when their children reach a certain age, they are giving a free trip to Israel so that they can learn about their quote unquote history. A free trip. Oh, who is it paid by? It ain't, guess what? It ain't them paying for it. Let me give you that hint. But they get a free trip to Israel. Yeah, that's how connected they are. So you think that somehow have you seen them out there begging out there on the street, begging for that? You seen them out there marching and saying, doggone it, you going to give us our money? You going to give us our rep? I haven't seen that. But you think that you're going to change all of that. Okay. So my point is, family, is it's time for you to wake up. It really is. And so tonight, hopefully what we're going to be talking about tonight, it will yet again convince you that we do need to wake up and we need to be honest with one another. We got to be honest with one another, no matter how much it hurts, because I'm past that now. As hopefully you can clearly see, I'm way past that now, because now I'm just saying, let me just Let me just run down the clock at this point, because at this point now is every man for himself. That's kind of that's really where we are right now. That's really where we are. Let me share with you about this. This is a post I put up just probably a little over an hour ago, back on social media. Here's a black person. Yes, it's a black person. Okay, not this. Well, this image here is a black person, but the person that posted it is, in fact, young black woman. And I don't follow her, but I've been kind of keeping my eye on stuff she's been posting and all of that. And, she's another one of these, I ain't from Africa. We're Aboriginal. We're originally from this land and all this stuff. We have nothing to do with Africa. And this is what she posted. And she says, they say I'm African, and she has all the laughing faces. I'll tell you, all righty then. And then she posted this. Right, she created this. I told you this whole thing with the AI artwork, man. I tell you, it's a double-edged sword, and it's quite unfortunate how this is. And people like Tariq Nasheed, and others, they have used this AI artwork to do the same thing, to mimic what racist whites or non-blacks have done for hundreds of years in depicting black people. Now we're in 2023. Over 400 years we've been in this country, and look how far we've advanced. We've advanced so far that now black people are now learning to do what white people have been doing for hundreds of years, doing little images like this and talking about their own people. See how far a lot of our people have come? Anyway, I wrote down, I said, our greatest enemy is our own. I say, if you want to deny your African lineage and claim that you are a proud American, then so be it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But why do you have to all mimic racist whites when talking about the rest of us? Like, why do you have to make it's like this. It's like when in the news I just saw recently, there's a black guy that is a tranny, a transgender, whatever. And yet another person, I think he's in Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. And he has gotten arrested. Now, this is a person that's helped push LGBT legislation or whatever, right? Well, he just got arrested. Gee, what do you got arrested for? Well, I'll tell you what. Messing around with underage boys. Well, it seems like that's kind of a trend now, doesn't it? But we're to ignore all of that. But it seems, I'm bringing that up because it's like this mad dash. If you want to identify as that, then so be it. But then why do you got to make such a mad dash to start abusing children? It's the same thing with these white women that are school teachers. I mean, y'all have been seeing the trend. It's like, okay, you're a school teacher or whatever. Okay, you got a little something on the side, let's say, because you got this trend now with school teachers doing OnlyFans and stuff now. Okay, that's what you want to do, that's fine. But then why do you automatically got to connect that to little children? Why do you got to go after the little boys and girls in your classroom? Why you got to do that? Why just keep it in your in-house? I thought that's what it was all about. Well, likewise, it's the same logic. Okay, if you want to be Chief Halftown, for my people in the Philadelphia area, you know what I'm talking about. That was a show for children that came out. It was actually a real Native American chief. He used to have a morning show for children. And his name was Chief Halftown. And they would get up there and they would do he said, tribal members. He would teach people, about the culture and all. It was pretty neat when I think about it. I may bring it up on YouTube, man. I forgot about that. But anyway, if you want to be the Indian, you want to be the black Indian, then you be the black Indian. But I guess I'm sitting here wondering, why then you got to do this? Why you got to rush to do this kind of stuff? I don't understand it. So you quickly want to reclassify yourself as something else that has nothing to do with Africa, and the first thing you do is this kind of stuff. That's moving forward for you. That's moving forward. See, but we can't talk about this, can we? We're not allowed. We can't talk about, Dwayne, that's not all of them. No, it's not all of them, but it's a lot of them. And that's very true. And every time I try to have this conversation, sometimes it just, people just, I don't know what to say. Of course you don't, because we have tolerated this kind of foolishness for a very long time. And it's time for us to say enough is enough. Enough is enough with the foolishness. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, I ain't got no problem. If someone wants to identify that looks like me and say, hey, listen, I don't want to be black anymore. I hate being black. I don't want to have anything to do with Africa at all. Okay, fine. Then you go make your tribe, do your thing. Go to eBay, go to to Party City, get all your gear, take all your pictures, take all that. Do you. Okay? And then that's it. But why do you got to get on social media and start portraying the rest of us like that? So now we're fighting on two fronts. We're fighting white people and we fighting you. What? I don't understand that. But that's what we see. We see a lot of that. And it's really sad, and I want to say embarrassing, but I can't claim them folks anymore. I really can't. Because you got a lot of natives now, Native Americans, they're like, man, enough is enough. And so they're getting on social media too, and they're calling this stuff out for what it is. They're like, leave our stuff alone. No. And they will post stuff. They say, isn't this embarrassing? They really hate themselves this bad that they will do this kind of stuff. Seriously, I sit up there and it's like, ain't nothing I can say. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They will claim, they'll go through it's like they thumb through their accounts and find different practices and stuff like that. And then they'll repost it on their account and they say, see, yeah, this is us. It's like, man, y'all, it's really something. I'm bringing all of this up for a reason. I'm not just venting here. I'm bringing all of this up for a reason because what we talked about recently, we talked about this movie, doggone, you're getting old. I can't think of the name right now. Is it Last Man Standing or Leave the World Behind? There you go. Leave the World Behind. That's what it's called. That was on Netflix. And as I mentioned in the last broadcast, boy, oh boy, wasn't your timeline on fire with that? So many people had so much to say on it, including yours truly, but for me, I tried, I said, I'm not going to go blow by blow and go through every scene and all of this stuff. And let's freeze frame this. And this is what it is. I'm not going, I'll pick out some things, but does that really help anybody? Is that really the help we really need? How many movies we need to see? It's like we got to wait for now they're going to really tell you what's up in the next season of The Boys. Now, when the Boys come out, that's when they're going to really drop some truth. Or you better watch out, man, when they come out with the next Avenger movie. Now, the next one, they really going to tell you the truth. When's that coming out? Oh, in 2 years? They're still trying to figure out the whole, the Kang thing. They're trying to figure that out because, my man, messing around with, got partnered up with the white woman and now he in trouble. So they got to find a new character. But once they find a new Negro to put in there, maybe Charleston White, they'll put in there and now we're going to get the truth. Family, honey, if you are waiting for Hollywood to give you clues and hints and suggestions on what you should be doing now, especially if you're black, you've been asleep. Because the amount of drama that our people have, real drama that we have experienced, we have enough that we can pull from and learn a lot from. And tonight we're going to talk about one of those cases. And I was just thinking about this yesterday when I was talking to Nicole. Many of y'all who are listening to me or watching this, you remember Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. I remember that. We were living in Southern California at the time, and watching that on the television was something to behold. It was, I'm sure it was something on a whole nother level if you were living there. Some of y'all may have even were living down there at the time, seeing, experiencing the horror, of all this great flood of water that came in this city, and to see, people, waist deep, knee deep. I mean, just, and just to see all of that, it was something really traumatizing. I'm speaking for someone who's just watching it, The people who had to experience it, it was a whole nother level of trauma, obviously, of what they had to experience and what they went through. I remember, if we hit the rewind button just a little bit, I remember, when the warnings were going out, and I remember seeing it on the weather reports, and this thing was huge. The storm as it was coming in, man, this thing was huge as it was coming in, and they were warning people. And I think, was it Ray Nagin? I don't know where he is now, but anyway, he was the mayor at the time, and he told the people, and he said, "Listen, y'all need to get up out of here. Y'all need to get up out of here." And he was telling people like way before that. By this time, it was national news. This wasn't some kind of local thing where it was like whatever. Before the storm even hit, it was national news, because people were looking at this thing from all angles, and they were saying, man, if this thing makes landfall, it's going to be nasty, and people need to get up out of there now. And so thankfully, there was a lot of people who did just that. They got up out of there. But you also had a significant portion of people who did not leave. And later we find out the reason why many of those people didn't. Well, there's a couple of reasons why a lot of those people didn't leave. One, it was because, well, several reasons now I think about. One, people just didn't have transportation. That's one. Two, the highways were jam packed, with people trying to get up out of there. So it was very difficult for people to get out. But the third one was one that I think was the most problematic. And that was, I heard from multiple people who were saying that how, they were like, man, listen, we've been through this, it's gonna come and go. It ain't gonna be no big deal or whatever. Right. And so a lot of times they say this stuff, and it usually amounts to nothing. Right. So that was the different reasons why you had people who were down there prior to the storm actually happening. Right. Then once the storm actually took place, it happened, and you can see it just really decimated that area. I mean, totally decimated that area. Roads were blocked, all that stuff. And so people who wanted to leave, they couldn't by that time, because, you had bridges out, roads were out, that kind of thing. And it was really bad. And to watch all of that just unfold on national television, it was really something to behold, because here you have a city. I mean, we've seen desolation in small towns and communities, due to natural disasters. We've seen that kind of stuff. But I think this was probably the first time in a while outside of 9/11 that we saw a whole city, that's being decimated like this, particularly a city that was made up of a good percentage of black folks, to see that kind of stuff. So, of course, it was just a sense of helplessness, and, the government needs to do something right now, and, all of that, but it was only so much based on what what was being put out there that could be done at that time, So it was a very, very horrible experience. So that was one thing, especially you have your elders down there, that just nothing they could do. It was stories of many of them drowning, and then over time, as ways were being made, people were able, as some of the land start drying up a little bit, people were finding any kind of way to get up out of there. There was this one story in particular I remember. It was a young man young guy, I mean, he's a teenager, who said, what the heck with this? He broke into where the school buses were, stole a school bus. And did he steal it or what? At that point, is it even stealing at that point? But you know what I mean. He took a school bus. I'll just say that. Remember that? That was a whole thing. You got, they're takers. And then what was the whole thing? It was like they're looters or they're survivors or something. It was something like that. It was that created a whole discussion of it. So anyway, so he took a school bus, right? Unauthorized. He took a school bus and he packed it up with it, whoever can fit in. And he drove whoever wanted to get on the bus. He drove them from New Orleans to Texas, and they got there. They got there. So people had to lean on their own ingenuity at that point. But then you also had a lot of people who were unfortunate. They did not have, the opportunity to leave. They were just completely stuck, and so As time went on, the government started dropping food down there. You start bringing soldiers down there to help, fix the problem and all that other stuff. And even now in 2023, if you believe it or not, there's still fallout with that. Just with those, remember they supplied these individuals who were now homeless with these like trailer homes, right? The government did. Well, the problem was that those trailer homes had some type of metallic paint that was in there, and so there was fumes that was coming from that paint, and it was causing people to get sick. So that was a whole nother level of stuff that was unfolding. Now, at that time, I was working. I was doing security at a hotel. It's an exciting job. Yeah, yep. One of the many times I had to start from the bottom and work my way up, but hey, it was all right. And so anyway, doing late night shift, and I started seeing that I'm out in, where was this? Ontario, California. So that's like going inland a little bit, right? Right down the street. I was literally right down the street from the Ontario airport. And at this hotel, and there was all kind of crazy stuff that would happen at the hotel. I hated that job, but whatever. But there was after a while, I started noticing all these black folks start coming in there. I was like, man, where are these black folks coming from? And come to find out, these are people that were sent out there by the government, because they were being relocated. Remember that? You had black folks that were living in that area, who lost their homes, who lost everything, that were they were simply being asked, where do you want to go? All right, we're going to ship you out here. We're going to send you out here. So you're talking not too long ago, family, where black folks were being sent out all different points all throughout the United States. You imagine your whole entire life you established and built right in one town, in one part of the country. You lose it all just like that, and then only being told, okay, basically the clothes on your back, we're going to send you on the other side of the country. That was happening a whole lot. And I had the opportunity to meet a lady. She was a business owner. She had her own business. And of course she lived in there, down in New Orleans as well. Lost everything. And she said, I'm in this hotel. I don't have any family out here. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I've lost everything. So she went from New Orleans all the way out to Southern California. I mean, that's not really a good place to start. When you going from, cost of living wise anyway, you know what I mean? When you're talking about, living down in that region and now you in Southern California, that's pretty rough, but it happened, and it happened a whole lot. So we talk about that. So I'm just kind of stirring up the memories here a little bit amongst us right now as we're talking, as y'all are listening and watching here, so that we can kind of get to a place mentally of just kind of reimagining, a little bit of what it was like for many of those dear people who lost everything and were thrown into, we can get into the argument as to, well, they should have got up and left when the opportunity comes. That's on them. I'm not getting into any of that right now. What I want to really focus on is the mental health aspect of it. And it was actually a story that was done, and we're going to get to that in just a moment, because that part of it is is important. They actually did a study. I think there was some studies done on it, but I have an article that I'm going to show you where they actually talk about where they, looked into this, and you'll be amazed at the fallout that is still happening because of that event. See, that's why I say you want to sit around and talk about movies. You want to do a breakdown, 3-4 hour breakdown of a Netflix movie? That was a nightmare. I'm just talking Katrina now. You know what I'm saying? That was crazy. That wasn't no Netflix movie. That was real. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's why. So this is why. Now take what we just talked about and describe the whole scenario, right? Now we're in 2023. Now we're dealing with a heightened situation where numbers of our people now actually hate themselves to the point where they don't even want to be black. They don't want to have anything to do with Africa. What does Africa got to do with this or whatever? Well, what I'm saying is, like I said again, go back to what I said. If you don't want to associate yourself being Africa, that's fine. But why do you have to go and do this kind of stuff here? Why do you got to do that? So now in 2023, just imagine you're in that situation when you're dealing with all this stuff here. And now you got folks now that hate themselves so much, they're doing this kind of stuff. What can you build? What system or safety net can you actually build or lean on when you're dealing with people who see themselves like that? You can't. That's why it was funny. I was individual, one person, they the whole video, they were doing this breakdown of the movie or whatever, using all these scriptures and stuff. And I say, see, this is how it's done. The Matrix, people use the Matrix to kind of, okay, we got to keep you back in now, because the only way you can process this is through the Matrix, because the Matrix, it will help you to understand and to process all of this. You can't just free think anything. You got to think it through the filterization of the Matrix, So we got to, let's go through all these scriptures and do a breakdown and show you exactly what scripture this ties to. And then this scene tied to this scripture and that scene tied to that scripture, trying to keep you stuck in the Matrix. And ain't doing nothing. Ain't building nothing, ain't doing anything. And so anyway, let's see what I had. So this is the kind of stuff that was going on. Now, I was not there. Okay. I was not there. I was not in New Orleans. I was not there. I wasn't there. But there were accounts that were coming out of people that was saying that when this thing blew up, the crime went up. Not all the people that were in that area turned into criminals overnight. Nobody is saying that here. Okay. Nobody's calling all these people criminals. Okay. So please don't go there with me. But what I'm trying to tell you is when things like that happen, when there is a breakdown like that, we don't have to forget Katrina. You can look at any situation. Anytime there's a perceived breakdown in society, in a town, in a city or whatever, the people who are already Looney Tune in their heads, it gets exasperated. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when we go back to Katrina, that was the same thing that happened. But it was just on a whole nother level. I mean, you talking about massive flooding, power outages, people ain't getting food, nothing that. So you had people who were just doing all kinds of stuff. Ain't talking about just white people now. There were black people too that were doing some crazy stuff. They were doing some crazy stuff. And I ain't talking about just stealing TVs. There was some crazy stuff that was coming out of that city. There were black women that were coming forward talking about how they were being raped. Yes, I know you don't want to talk about that. I know you don't want to hear that. I know you want me to tell you that it was a united front all across the board and, none of that happened. And we turned into Black Wall Street overnight. No, that didn't happen. It didn't. Okay. Now, like in all my broadcasts, we're always going to end it on a positive note and one that is leave you with some action items that you can act on your own. Right. That's how this is going to end. I ain't going to leave you just down in the dumps. Okay. There's some action items that you're going to need to take on your own. But anyway, let me see. So this is a story that was one of them right here. I'm going to scroll down here. They talked about, let's see, concerned over unreported and underreported rapes. Her organization, together with the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they said created a national database to track sexual assaults that happened after Katrina. In the 6 weeks since the website has been up, with almost no publicity, it has received 42 reports of sexual assaults. All right. And the 42 reports include assaults that happened inside New Orleans and outside the city, for instance, in host homes. Another group, Witness Justice, a Maryland-based nonprofit that assists victims of violent crimes, claims to have received 165 reports of post-Katrina violent crimes. About a third of those involved sexual assaults. And then you have cases here, this one woman who's 46 years old, and she basically talked about when it happened, she said the city had lost power. She was sleeping in the dark hallway, trying to catch a breeze. And she said a man with a handgun came and did what he did, and it was just horrible, okay? I'll just spare you all the details. And then there's another one here, too. Hairdresser, same thing. And there's some other stories as well of different individuals that were saying that, that kind of stuff was happening. Also, it was stuff happening, all kinds of reports that was coming out of the, the dome and all of that as well. And again, this doesn't apply to all the people who live in that city, because you had people that you did have black people that were coming together and trying to establish something, trying to make, trying to help one another and all that. There's many positive stories that came out. For this broadcast, though, what we're focusing on is what outweighed that, unfortunately. You understand what I'm saying? So anyway, so just imagine you're in this situation and all of this happens. So whatever's in society right now, when something like that breaks out, it's going to get exasperated, period. It just is. So if you rolling with the crazy people right now that are doing all this, posting all this weirdness and craziness on social media, what do you think is going to happen when it all breaks, when it really all comes down? What do you think is going to happen? You understand? This is why we emphasize that you as an individual need to start building your own networks, building your own stuff, connecting with real people, not Twitter, not YouTube, not on real people. You need to connect with real people so that when things like this do happen, you already are prepared, just plain and simple. Okay. Let me go to this article here. All right. This one is in the Politico, and they talk about something here that I think is really, really important. It's right here. Okay. So this article here, Katrina brain. Wow. The invisible long-term toll of megastorms. So I'm just going to skip down here. Let's see here. It says in New Orleans, doctors are still treating. Okay, when was this written here? This was written in 2017. So you're talking many years later. In New Orleans, doctors are still treating the psychological devastation of Katrina. More than 8,000 patients receive care for mental illness and addictive disorders just from Jefferson Parish Human Services Authority, which runs 2 health centers in the New Orleans metropolitan area. At least 90% of the patients lived through Katrina, and many still suffer from storm-related disorders, according to medical director. Okay, and then they go on, right? And then it says, who adds that he and most of his fellow clinicians also suffer from some level of long-term anxiety from the storm. Each year, about the same time, I start checking the National Weather Service at least 3 times a day. These long-term mental health effects of extreme weather are a hidden public health epidemic, one that is expected to strain the U.S. healthcare system and is as the intensity and frequency of hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, earthquakes, and other natural disasters increase in coming decades. All right, let's go in here to the Katrina brain section here. For climate change believers, this year's string of record. Okay, I'll just skip that. When an entire city experiences a significant trauma at the same time as New Orleans did during Katrina and Houston did during Harvey, it can push a lot of people over the edge. This is what we were talking about. Some people can rely on their inner strength and resilience to get through it, but others cannot. Not everybody turns into Rambo. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody has that inner strength, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Some people at the smell of disorder, you just melt. You just kind of pass out. You know what I mean? You ever see those old like horror movies, the old ones? Now, here you got Frankenstein going 0.2 miles an hour, chasing this little white girl, right? He going 0.2 miles an hour, and the girl trip. It can be the most plainest ground. Ain't nothing on the ground. There's nothing on the ground. Nothing. And here this white woman will find a little twig that a mouse was using to pick his teeth, and the mouse just flicked it down there, and then she just tripping like she done tripped over a brick or something, and now here come Frankenstein or whatever, and it's just but some people are like that. When things happen, they just melt. They just can't handle it. You know what I'm saying? And that is a real thing. That's a real thing. And so anyway, in the aftermath of Katrina, many survivors struggled with short-term memory loss and cognitive impairment, a syndrome dubbed Katrina brain. According to a report by, and then they named the person. Okay, so let me read that part again. Many survivors struggled with short-term memory. See, we ain't talking no Netflix bull crap now. We ain't getting in it. See, I ain't gotta waste the time. Did you see when he held his hand up like that? Ain't nobody got time for that mess. This is real. This is what happens when tragedy strikes. These are the real things that happen to people. All right. So they said when this thing happened, when it came down like that, they noticed an uptick of people that was having issues with short-term memory loss, and cognitive impairment, a syndrome dubbed Katrina brain. All right. And he says, even though more than half of the population of New Orleans had evacuated, psychiatric helpline calls increased 61% in the months after Katrina. Compared with the same period before the storm, death notices increased 25%, and the city's murder rate rose 37%. A year after Katrina, psychiatrist James Barbie reported that many of his patients in New Orleans had deteriorated from post-Katrina anxiety to more serious cases of depression and anxiety. People are just wearing down, Barbie said. There was an initial spirit about bouncing back and recovering, but it's diminished over time as weeks have become months. And then they go in a longitudinal study comparing the mental health of low-income single moms in New Orleans before and after Katrina. 1 in 5 participants reported elevated anxiety and depression that had not returned to post-storm levels 4 years later. That's a lot in that. There's a whole lot in there we can talk about, because what that did is that it created a new mean line. It because now everything that happens after that, now their children that these single moms had are now being birthed at that higher level of anxiety. And you see how it just goes on and on and on, right? So anyway, and then it goes on. It says for a smaller percentage of people in the study, particularly people with no access to treatment, symptoms of anxiety developed into more serious chronic conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, they talked about that. Then they get into the cost of that and all that stuff, right? You know, and they just talk about the reality of what these individuals were pushed into. You know, like I said, again, you can do the blame game. I ain't got time for the blame game. But the reality is that you had a large group of people that was pushed into a situation where you're literally seeing bodies rotting in the streets, you know, people of animals, you know, favorite pets, things like that. And it's all thrown in your face. And now you have to process it just like that. You understand what I'm saying? This ain't some gradual, like, you know, it's a loved one that's sick and you see them gradually getting sicker. No, this is just an overnight thing. You understand? And again, we're talking about this because, again, we're not the Netflix stuff. Okay, that's just a movie. But this right here is something that our people have gone through. Now, have we come out on the other side successful? Well, again, that's I would probably, generally speaking, I would say no. We've come out of the other side, but it was a successful exit. I don't think so, because again, we can go on with this and talk about how I know in Atlanta, for example, it was a large uptick of a lot of people. Because remember, they were moving people wherever they can move them. There were a lot of people from New Orleans that they were moving to Atlanta. A good friend of ours who worked in Grady Memorial Hospital, she talked about how the amount of people they had coming in and just the mental state that a lot of these people were in. She said it was just, it was crazy. What they were doing. They were saying we clearly were not prepared for this. And, you had crime going up in the city. You had all kinds of stuff that was happening. It was just literally dumping these people, like today, they're trucking these people from the border, coming from the Mexican border. And they're just dumping these people in places like New York City, DC and all this other stuff. And they just dumping these people all over the place, all over the country. And the people who live in these local towns and communities, they're now like, okay, well, the government is like, okay, now you got to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? So just imagine being in that situation like that. But our people, even in recent years, have experienced that. And I guess the reason why I'm doing this broadcast is to kind of stir up the reminder of that, because in this social media high pace environment we live in, we tend to forget things like this that we should, as often as we can, reach back to and learn from those things so that we're not repeating the same mistakes. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I'm doing this whole broadcast. So anyway, the article goes on, and I'll just read some more of this here. It says, in the past decade, first responders and public health workers began training in a type of mental health first aid that research has shown to be effective in lowering anxiety and reducing the risk that the traumas experienced during the storm will lead to serious mental illness. And they talk about some of the things that they're doing right here. Some public health officials, experts say that we need to start thinking about longer term solutions for the longer term problem of severe weather instead of trying to treat the post-storm psychological damage. We should avoid it in the first place by persuading residents to move out of storm prone areas. And then they go on. All right. Very good points that made in this article here. But, the reason why I went to read that article is so we can, really look at, it's not just a storm. This thing is multi-tiered. And some of y'all who maybe not lived in New Orleans, but you lived in that region, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, just the amount of damage, is one thing to repair a home, but it's another thing when you're trying to repair someone's mind. You know what I'm saying? And so, what are some things practically we can be doing now when it comes to preparing ourselves for the days ahead? Well, one of the things I would say too, there's a lot of things, but I would say more than a generator. You can have all the generators. You can get all the solar generators. You can get all the, I know where all the water wells are. We got emergency blankets. We got emergency candles. We got backed up food. We got first aid kits. You got all of that. But if your mind ain't right, it ain't going to make a hill of beans of difference. It's not. It isn't. So I would say the first things first is to make sure, starting now, make sure you are surrounding yourself and you're connecting yourself with people that are of sound mind, real people. Not people with nicknames on social media, real people, and start connecting with people, preferably people that live nearby or close by, and making sure that you have those discussions like, hey, listen, if something were to break out, we have each other's numbers, right? Okay. What do you have? Like, I'm storing food. What do you have? Are you storing stuff too? So you're already having those conversations, that's one thing. Number two, and I would say this is probably, you're just going to have to put your foot down, is you're going to have to cut away the craziness. You're going to have to cut away the fools from around your life. Even if they're people who are in your family, if they are like a doggone magnet where wherever they go, they're always bringing drama with them, you need to tell them, you know what? You're going to have to keep that all the way over there. You are. You're going to have to start cutting yourself away, and keeping distance. You understand what I'm saying? Now, this is your family. I'm sure you love them and all that. You don't want to see nothing bad happen to them. But at the same time, what's important right now, and for some of you, I'm talking to you directly. What's important to you right now in this time that we're in right now is you. See, you may need to marinate on that for a moment, because we got to get out of this mindset where we just like, okay, now everybody all right? You all right over there? And they all right over there? Okay, as a people, we all gonna come together, and the Most High, he gonna bring this. You better sit down, and you need to focus on you. You do, and I truly believe this is a time you need to do that, because if you start focusing on everything else and you're not focusing on the things in your own household, you gonna be crazy. Do you know how many people, if and when whatever stuff start happening, the first inclination they're gonna get on their cell phones. Already know that the power is out, but it's just a natural reaction. You're just gonna get on your cell phone and you're gonna be up here. This phone ain't working. It ain't working. I can't get anybody. Well, you ain't prepared for that. Well, I'm looking out the window. I'm hoping that the government. You really think the government care about you? So stop thinking that the government is actually, as soon as the power go out, oh, we got to go and help these black folks. We got to hurry up now. We got to help the black folks now. We got to hurry up now. That's our first priority. They ain't thinking about you. So you have to start thinking about these things now. And you got to prioritize yourself. You hear what I'm saying to you? It's okay to prioritize yourself. It's okay to do that. And in prioritizing yourself, like I said, the number one thing is making sure you rid the crazies away from you, period. There's conversations even now, it's like there's certain things I said, I'm not going to say but too much now. Less and less. I haven't been doing but too many videos lately. I got the other day, I had an inclination to do one. I said, nope, let me go take a walk somewhere. Let me go walk somewhere. Let me enjoy some peace and quiet, and I'll get to whatever I get to. I'm not going to do that. Let me focus on me today. What are some things I need to do to make sure my family's together? And that's exactly what I did that day. Focused on me and focused on my family. That's what I did. And many of you need to hear somebody tell you that, because if you don't hear someone tell you that, you will never do it. So let me be that voice today for you and say, it's okay. There are days you definitely need to focus and prioritize yourself. It's okay to do that. If you are an individual that, in yourself that, man, I really don't know if stuff was to break out. I don't know how to react. I'm not good in situations like that. It's okay. Be willing to acknowledge that now. Acknowledge it now. It's okay. All right. Now, we can all say here, listen, at the end of the day, we know our Creator will take care of us, right? We know that. But do not lean on that 100%. Meaning, understand, follow what I'm saying here. Meaning you don't do anything. That's what I'm talking about. Because you have some people saying, oh, I don't want to hear any of that. La, 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 la. I don't want to hear that. God going to take care of everything. The Most High, he going to take care of everything, honey. I ain't trying to do all that. Because see what you do. The reason why some of our people do that is because they don't want to deal with the details. They don't want to address those things that cause them to break down when things start going up. So what I'm saying is, if you're that person where you just kind of fall apart or whatever when things start happening, my advice to you now is to get whatever help you need to, connect with people who are stronger than you in some of these areas, and do that. Build your support system now. Notice I haven't touched anything about, emergency lights or batteries or water or anything like that, because see, it starts here. Because if this is right, honey, you will be more than fine with nothing but naked. You'll be fine. You understand what I'm saying? Because you have the sense enough to find some clothes. You understand what I'm saying? So that's another area I would say too is, you know, investing in your peace of mind, investing in your peace of mind. We did a video recently where we talked about, there's a correlation between immersing yourself in total silence, not just nice, pretty piano music, but total silence. There's a correlation between that and your brain actually healing itself. Many of you are listening to way far too many people all the time, and your brain is like, doggone it, can you please turn this person off? I'm trying to heal you. You understand what I'm saying? So for some of you, you need to kind of regulate what you allow to pass through this ear gate, especially during this time. You remember the other day I posted something on a community page. I think it was yesterday. There's a news article. There was an article, a story that came out. The what was it right here? Let me see. Where was that? That Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. This story that came out. Saying that they, made them co-athletes of the year. And many of y'all already know the backstory on this. So it was really interesting to see how they did that. Well, they do that because they're trying to get a reaction out of you. Do you know how many stories have come through, family, just in the last week, of stories that were particularly crafted to get you off center, to get you in your emotions, to get you in your feelings, to get you just kind of distracted and all this stuff? You know how many stories have come? What is that? No. You know how many stories have come out like that? Many. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. The importance of making sure that you stay away from this kind of stuff right here as much as possible. I'm not saying you don't read the stories, but understand what they're trying to do. And the movie, if you're going to refer to the movie itself was trying to tell you that the focus of the day is to create a sense of civil war, to get people mad and as angry as much as possible at each other. That's what you have going on today. And you need to understand that. You understand what I'm saying? You need to understand that in the midst of all this stuff that's happening right now in the world, what they also are trying to do is coming up with all kinds of things to get you mad and to get you angry, to find yet another. We need to tap into more black anger. We need to tap into more black rage. We gotta tap into that because we gotta get these black people irritated about something. Let's come up with something else. Let's come up with another thing they can talk about, because when they talk, the world talks, the world reacts. So we got to come up with something else. Let's talk about something else. Let's bring up an old white lady that said something and let's make that go viral and all this stuff. Do you understand? See, I don't think I think we say these things, but I think a lot of people don't believe it. As someone who has spent a great deal of time in marketing and listening to people who are very successful in marketing and all of that stuff, I mean, I'm talking about that crazy kind of that guerrilla type marketing, that kind of stuff. When you listen to these people, I'm telling, and people in the political world, there are people in the political space that I have met over time or whatever. The stories the things that these people will do to get to black people. I'm talking Democrats and Republicans, y'all. You think it's just Republicans that are out here ginning up stuff. The Republicans and Democrats, they work together. They work together. When it comes to getting under the skin of black folks, these people work together. They do. To get you all ginned up, to get you all gassed up, and to get you to a place where you can't even make a sound decision about anything. I'm telling you, in the days, weeks, and months ahead, this is going to be your next number one enemy, the cell phone. The stuff that's on here. I ain't talking about the 5G stuff. I ain't talking about that. We can talk about 5G and the impact it has on your body and all that stuff. But I'm talking about the information that comes out of this and what many of you subject yourself to when it comes to this, the information that you're obtaining from these devices. You're going to have to work on your discernment. That's why I said immerse yourself in quiet. Let's see. One last thing, and one day I'm gonna have my I was asking my wife if we did a video on this. I think we did, but I do want to revisit this at some point. Um, we talked about here's the other practical thing, something to include in your diet. All right. I'll put this link in the chat too. Magnesium for anxiety, does it help? And it magnesium is something, as you know, our diets, our Western diets are void of a lot of these minerals and vitamins that our bodies desperately need. Now, for some of you, you may have heard of the what something like magnesium does, but I just want to read some of this article again, for the benefit of those who don't know, so that you can kind of, maybe it's something that will be a benefit to you. Either way, it'll be a benefit to all of us. But I put the link in the chat there. But I'll just read some of it, okay? They said if you've ever struggled with anxiety, they said your search for relief may have taken you to some interesting places. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Magnesium is an essential element that our body needs. It is the key to multiple biologic processes like cell functioning and energy utilization. As a supplement, some scientific evidence shows that it can reduce your risk of high blood pressure. It also may manage blood sugar levels for people with type 2 diabetes. And there have been studies looking into the benefits of magnesium for everything from migraine treatment to COVID-19, which has shown to be helpful in some cases. They say here, but when it comes to mental health, could magnesium really help reduce anxiety? From a neurological standpoint, there's some evidence to suggest magnesium can be beneficial for managing anxiety and stress. And they said, though more research is needed or whatever. How magnesium is good for anxiety. Among other things, magnesium has been shown to help with anxiety in various ways. But before we get into the details, it's important to remember that supplements like magnesium aren't suitable replacements for professional medical care. Okay, so you got all that. Okay, YouTube gods, I'm not a doctor. Okay, we're just reading an article. Okay. All right, regulates cortisol levels. Magnesium has been shown to help with leveling out your cortisol, one of the stress hormones in your body. Cortisol is very important for acute stress, but in times of chronic stress, like we were just talking about, it can actually worsen depression and anxiety. In other words, too much stress and therefore cortisol may magnify your anxiety. Many studies have explored the effect that magnesium has on reducing cortisol levels. Magnesium can tackle the excessive anxiety by diminishing or blocking the neuroendocrine pathways that send cortisol to your brain. All right, I know that's a mouthful there, but again, this is something that you can do now. You can start adding to your diet now. You know what I'm saying? And that will kind of help you in this process, so when things do happen, if there is a sudden shift or something, then you're in a much better position to handle it from a mental perspective, right? Balances out neurotransmitters. In addition, magnesium can help with regulating overwhelmed neurotransmitters in your brain. Neurotransmitters serve as the on and off switches of the brain. When you get stressed or anxious, they flip on, and when they calm back down, they turn off. When too many of your switches are on, your nerves are hyper excited. So you feel anxious and you can even feel depressed, especially in the emotional control centers of our brain. Your brain keeps these on and off switches balanced by having two types of neurotransmitters. The first excites the nerves, while the other inhibits or blocks them. The on switches of the neurochemical called glutamate, he continues, and the off switches, or the thing that turns some of these nerves off, is a neurochemical called gamma. I gave you the link so you can read it. Okay. Okay, let me read. It says, what to know about magnesium deficiency. Finally, there is also something to be said about magnesium deficiency and how for some people taking these supplements could fill a nutritional gap. We know from studies done 10 to 15 years ago, about 70% of Americans are magnesium deficient. So it's a pretty common thing that we see. And we've seen that when you give magnesium to people, especially with mild anxiety, they tend to get better. So it may be possible that you could have a deficiency that's contributing to your anxiety. It's important to discuss this with your healthcare provider, blah, blah, blah. All right. And they talk about some of the foods that you can get magnesium from. All right. They said nuts, whole grains, low fat dairy, leafy greens, that kind of stuff. So yeah, side effects of too much. So that's why I said just read all of this. And the thing I like about this article too, they tell you what's the recommended amount that each age group should take. Okay. Now I'm telling you all this. This ain't something we sell. This is something that you can look up on your own. And there are some very good companies out there that make this. And it's something that I would say it's worth researching and it's worth implementing as well in your own life. Yeah. And so there you go. So yeah, so I don't want to prolong this. We don't need to go any further than this, but I hope you got something out of this because again, we can talk all about the problems. We can talk all day and all night and do all these complete up downs and breakdowns about, oh Lord, you see what they're doing? The sky is falling, everything's about to burn up and all of this stuff. Or we can look at this, learn from our own experiences, particularly as Black folks. You know, tonight we talked about, Katrina. There's a wealth of information and lessons that we can learn from that. And I wanted to take that time to really go through some of those stories and, and just my little out of the box kind of experience. I wasn't down there, but some of my own observations, I'm sure many of you have that as well. But don't forget just the mental state of Black folks during that time. That is something really to take serious note of. And then also keep in mind too, and this is why you see me, on our platform talking about some of these people and some of this most ridiculous stuff that they're putting out here. Like I said, again, if you want to call yourself a Sephardic Jew, you want to call yourself an Indian, you want to call yourself whatever. Okay, then do you. I'm not going to argue down over that. If that's what you want to do, then you do that. But why is it that you have to go so hard once you make that declaration and start hating other people that look like you? See, when I see that, it speaks of something a lot deeper that's going on there that you may need to get checked out. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being very serious. I really am, and because what it shows is that there are numbers of our people that really deal with self-hatred. It's just really what it is. And if you're dealing with that now, man, I tell you, if stuff really breaks out, you really are going to have a very difficult time. You really are. So why not take the time and address those things now while things are very calm, while you do have options of things that you can look at, and, so that when those times come, you are a lot more adjusted as an individual to be able to handle those things. Okay. So that's what we do. That's what we're talking about here on this platform. And we're going to continue to talk about those things here. Okay. And so anyway, if you have any questions for us, you can always reach out to us at connect@journeymanandwoman.com. Again, at connect@journeymanandwoman.com. I'm going to say it one more time. Connect@journeymanandwoman.com. Do not email us at connect@issacharronline.com. I've had some people do that this week, and we're just now getting to them because I don't check that email address anymore. So get that out of your mind, okay? The Issachar Online, we don't check that anymore, okay? Journeyman and Woman, it's connect@journeymanandwoman.com. If you have any questions regarding particularly what we're talking about here, what we don't know, we'll be more than happy to steer you in the direction of people who do know, who are gifted, who are trained in these areas, and they ain't just talking about stuff off the top of their heads, okay? All right, we're going to get through this, family, okay? But we're going to have to start with being honest and upfront with one another, okay? That's a very painful thing to do for a lot of people, but it has to be done. Okay, family, we love you very, very much. You guys take care, and I'll see you again next time.